Okay. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay. Oops. Okay. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Grace Onofre and I will be presenting effective meeting management. I am from my Grace and Grace coaching firm, and today's workshop is on the screen. Let me see. Some of our training objectives today are going to be, well, we're going to be planning meetings effectively and accordingly to your audience, identifying the steps to deliver successful meeting, indicate the strategies used as tools in achieving your meeting goals, and to identify topics that require meetings and those that do not. Today, since we are short on time, I will only be talking about steps to an effective meeting, and then as well as conflict management, which here is our normal agenda, but today we're only going to be focusing on number 6 and number 7. Let me skip through these. Okay. So first, some of the steps that to have an effective meeting is to plan ahead and set reminders. So if you are planning a meeting, you always want to send reminders, especially if you are planning to host your meeting anywhere like from a week or to a couple of days ahead of time. It's always good to set reminders and also set the tone, whether it's going to be a behavioral meeting or just a meeting to solve any problems, or just a meeting to inform your either employees, students, or whoever you're having your meeting for. It's good to always have assignments, so you can either assign people to give you a heads up when your timing is short. Let's say that you only have a 2-hour limit. It's good to tell somebody to keep track of your time as well. Or if any of your attendees need to bring any materials, it's good to have that planned in advance before you get to your meeting, or at least have it supplied. That way you have it set. For your environment, so that's where you're going to have the meeting, it's always good to have a meeting environment where you don't have that many distractions. So it's also good to have meetings in places where your attendees are already familiar with. And if it's a place that your attendees are not familiar with, it's always good to familiarize them with it. So you can always plan to meet at this meeting ahead of time, kind of scope out the environment so that they are, oops, it looks like Destiny's coming in. Okay, hi, Destiny. Thank you for coming in.
No, I'm so sorry I'm late.
No, it's okay. So basically, what we're working on right now is just the delivery and steps. So as you can see on the screen, hopefully everyone can see it. So yeah, I'm going to continue. The environment is very important as well in running an effective meeting, because you don't want to have it in a place where it's too public, where there's way too many distractions. It's always best to have it in an office or a room. That way your attendees are focused on you. Another important thing is to have your setup already set before they come in, and you can have it in a traditional way, which is you being in the front and your attendees kind of like sitting behind you, almost like in a lecture kind of way. The next one is a horseshoe method, where you are in the middle and the rest of your attendees are all around you in a half circle. And then also a modular setup is where you yourself are in the middle of the classroom, and there are 4 squares of people. And typically the modular form is for any group work. Horseshoe method is usually for anybody who wants some application or needs to have participants in it. And traditional is more of a lecture, where you're just sitting and listening to the person running the meeting. Next is an outline. So it's good to know what you are presenting and have sort of a set way that you're going to run your meeting. So always have your outline on you. It's best so that you're able to keep on track, not to steer off in too many directions, especially if you're on a time limit. It's good to have agendas as well in any of your outlines, to just go over what you will be learning throughout the workshop or meeting or anything that you're running. And it's good to have objectives as well. That way you are previewing what you will be referring to throughout the meeting. Another way is to also connect with your audience. It's always good to keep them engaged, to keep eye contact, any gestures that you need. That would be like if you are in a office setting or in a classroom setting, it's always good to, walk around, correct your posture, have gestures. Facial expression is always a good one, especially when trying to run meetings in, like, let's say what we're doing now, like through Zoom, to kind of give your attendees kind of like a reinforcement, where it's like you understand what they're saying even though you're muted. And a big one that I will talk about next is conflict management, but I will talk about that next. And lastly is wrapping it up and call to action. So if you're running a meeting that needs to, I guess, have an ending to call to action, like let's say you're running a meeting for your employees and you want them to change a behavior, at the end of your meeting, you always want to refer back to what you learned and sort of set a goal for them, so that you are able to see what, let me see, you're able to see the meeting actually playing out in the long run. Let me see. Okay, so moving forward, I'm going to talk about conflict management. So in order to run a successful meeting, not only is it important for you to know the steps to run a successful meeting, but also understand that during this meeting, your employees or attendees are also important, and their participation is important as well. There are many types of employees in a meeting that you need to look out for, and 4 of those main audiences are dominant attendees, negative attendees, aggressive, and as well as the quiet ones. The first one I'm going to be talking about today is the dominant attendee, which they will sort of take over the conversation. If you call on somebody, they'll be constantly they'll be interrupting your guests, and they will be the most expressive. So these are going to be the over talkers, the ones who want to answer every single question. Not saying that it's a bad thing, but they're just a little bit more dominant than those that are as well. Like they'll be talking without being called on and stuff like that, and ways to sort of correct this sort of attending is to basically do not encourage their actions. So if they are constantly talking over someone, you can just redirect the conversation back to the attendee that was answering the question or that was giving their opinion. It's good to acknowledge their contribution, but also validate others' opinions, and as well as calling on others as well, not only redirecting the conversation to them. The next one is the quiet attendee. The quiet attendee will basically be the one that just sort of fades into the background. She or he may be seeming scared to answer the question, or they just won't participate. Typically, in order to correct this sort of attendee, you want to praise their contribution, even if it's a little bit. Typically, they'll just be a little shy. So I believe that the more praise you give them, the more confident they'll feel in their answers. You want to preview your session. That way there are no surprises. So with this, you can do in your agenda and your training objectives, any exercise that you have in mind, you want to go ahead and talk about it at the beginning. That way they aren't surprised. And then you also want to sort of, how do I say this? You want to always reiterate that this is a safe space, that any of their opinions aren't going to be judged, aren't going to, everyone can have an opinion and you'll be hearing them out. So kind of just having that safe space, I feel like that will also give them a little confidence as well. The next one is the aggressive attendee. So this one is a little bit more than just being a dominant attendee. This attendee will actually overpower you as a trainer or you as the main person who's running the meeting. They'll constantly interrupt you and will seem very disruptive to the class. So what you want to do is at the beginning of your meetings, you always want to play out that you will not condone any of this type of behavior, especially if you already know your attendees. If you kind of already know what kind of personality they have, you always want to start it off by letting them know that you don't condone this behavior. You want to avoid putting them on the spot in the middle of your meeting, because that will kind of change the tone in the meeting. You always want to leave that sort of correcting till the end of your meeting. And then avoid assigning seats. So you never want to come in and say, oh, you need to sit here, or just let them have a little bit control, but not too much, because then they will get aggressive. And then also, you also want to focus on supporting anybody else around them, because sometimes they can make attendees feel uncomfortable. So you do want to support the others and sort of redirect conversation to them as well. And lastly, what I'm going to be talking about today is the negative attendees. So these attendees will show expressions of negativity. So they will also express that some of your solutions to problems might not work, or they'll feel very pessimistic, always asking why and not like engaging, and just overall seeming a little bit like uninterested. You always want to, at the beginning of your meetings or when you want to have their attention, you always want to give them a little bit of control. So let them have those opinions but also you want to, and hear them out and empathize with them as well, but you always want to redirect them into a more positive idea of what you're speaking of. So if these are, for example, if you're running a business meeting and you're going over numbers and ways to up your numbers, you always want to come up with solutions for that. And if, let's say, a negative attendee says that, oh, this would never work, why do I have to do this? It doesn't seem like it's beneficial. You always want to reiterate why it would be beneficial and also redirect them into a more positive idea of thinking, and that should at least quiet them down for a little bit. You always want to talk to them after the meeting and never during. Okay, so next I'm gonna go on to doing a little exercise. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm going to read a couple of scenarios, and going off of what we just learned and what I just spoke about, I want you to just identify the type of employee this could be or trainee that this could be, and how you would solve it. So let me move my screen. Okay, so for number one, an employee is constantly going on tangents and having side conversations with other employees during your discussion with your team. So what kind of employee would this person be? Anyone wants to jump in?
It would be the employee that's not all there. What is it?
We have it's just this little, it's dominant, negative, aggressive, or quiet.
I feel like they would be negative because they're not paying attention.
Okay.
It's like sidetracking.
Right. Okay. So yeah, so if they were the negative employee, what would you do to kind of fix this little issue that you're having during your meeting?
I would try to pull them. Oh, sorry. Go.
There you go, it's fine.
So I would try to pull them aside maybe and just speak to them and see what's going on instead of trying to make a whole scene and in front of everybody else.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Does anyone else have any other ideas?
Maybe towards the ending of the meeting, I would probably pull them aside, like Destiny said, after the meeting is done, and have a one-on-one conversation with them and letting them know that it was inappropriate and what can we do to fix it.
Okay, sweet. Let's see. And then number two, an employee is just sitting in the back of your meeting and is not really contributing to the conversation. They seem to want to join in, but are being overpowered. So what kind of employee is this person that's sitting like in the back?
I would say a quiet employee.
Mhm.
I guess we probably solve it by asking if anyone who hasn't spoken up yet has anything to contribute. Sort of like how I guess like a teacher sees there are some people who are very eager to answer, and then they ask whoever hasn't answered a question yet, would you like to say something? And then do it like that.
Perfect, thank you. And an employee is constantly giving their opinion on how they don't think a strategy might work. They are making the tone feel a little somber and unmotivated.
Would it not be dominant?
This one might be more of the employee who's negative because they're constantly voicing their opinion on how something might not work, when it's it's like kind of like the definition I gave earlier, the example I gave earlier, where if you're trying to make solutions to a problem and you're constantly giving ideas on how to do it, and they're like saying, oh no, that might not work, I don't think that's gonna work, or like having like a very negative idea of your solutions, I feel like maybe it would be a little bit more negative. And just on the basis of time, because I just got a little notification saying that my recording is gonna end soon. The way that you can also correct this behavior is just by showing how, like, let's say you can show benefit to what the solution might do, or give examples of how it would work and stuff like that. Okay, we're not going to be able to do that. So some of the key takeaways that I think running an effective meeting might do, or being aware of how to run an effective meeting, is to know when to send an email or when to make a meeting. If I would have gone over the complete whole of my session, I would have shown you examples of when to do a meeting and when not to. You also want to be aware of all the steps for preparing a meeting. It'll cut your time a little shorter, and as well as keeping it concise and not running on for like 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. It'll keep you focused. Always engage with your audience to retain focus. So be aware of all of the distractions that can happen in a classroom or in a meeting. You always want to stay on topic and keep the meeting as brief as you can make it. No one wants to sit and wait for a 3-hour, 4-hour lecture, or if you do have to, always make it engaging. Connect with your audience. So always let them know how it will affect them or how it might benefit them. And manage conflicts during meetings to keep your meeting running effectively. And always at the end, review what you have learned. And yeah, should be it. I want to just go ahead and thank everyone for coming to my meeting. It's literally about to end in like a minute or two. Hopefully that's enough time. But is there any questions or anything that you would like me to answer? How do I stop sharing? No?
I think it was a really good presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. And is there anything that, like, as you were doing as you were creating the presentation, that you learned?
I definitely did, especially because I have a new role at my job. So I think this whole idea was like good for me, especially. So yeah, I thought, because now I'm gonna be running some meetings myself. So it's like, to know the steps and everything, I think it helped me a lot in the new position I was. So that's why I ended up choosing this one, because I wanted to do something along the lines of where I can take it and like apply it into the result. So, yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.